Hey everyone, Angela here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering homeless guy. Walking down Venice Boulevard next to this big stretch of empty road, disgusting, obsequious, it's a big bloated mess. That's my urbanist rant. I took two buses coming from the New Beverly to watch one of my favorite movies, Adventureland. Beautiful film. I wanted to talk about the Nelk brothers, whoever they are, these Canadians who seem to masquerade as Americans, sort of like, they don't claim to be Americans, but I'm saying they deal a lot with American politics. They've had Trump on apparently, and they had war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, vicious racist, thug, bully. I was thinking about, while I was watching Adventureland, that the experience was tainted by the fact that knowing Palestinians are starving right now, just as a strategy of warfare. And the Nelk brothers, just brain dead, like airheads, talking with Benjamin Netanyahu. How embarrassing the lack of reflection, self-reflection is, that they could talk to him about what his favorite Burger King meal is, and let him just like make up these myths about we can't let food into Palestine because Hamas takes it and then they sell it, and then they use the money to fight us and make buy more weapons. Oh my goodness. The excuse for just mass starvation. It's so bogus on every level if you break it down. But I wanted to say, the lack of self-reflection is so embarrassing among everybody who supports this mass murder campaign. In the media, CNN, Jake Tapper, everybody who acts like they're sure they would have opposed the Nazis. They watch, especially conservatives, are so sure. They love to fantasize. I've literally seen video of some like conservative YouTuber who said how wrong it was that leftists are complaining about whatever issue, like gender issues or something. And he's like, when people went to the beaches in Normandy and fought and died, and what does he show? He shows footage from a fictional film, Saving Private Ryan, to show it like it's a documentary. It's a confession for conservatives, which is the only reason they really oppose Nazis is and liberals. I'm not letting them off, like Jake Tapper, and so many Democratic politicians. Good God, Joe Biden in particular. They fantasize that they would have opposed the Nazis, not based on their moral code or even having a moral code. I've decoded this based on having been a conservative myself. They fantasize that they would have opposed the Nazis because, to them, what made the Nazis bad was the aesthetic, was that they're in grainy black and white footage, usually screaming crowds and tinny audio and the screaming mustache man. They watch movies where sinister music is played, guys with slick back hair snarl and like brood and basically announce like I'm evil when I walk in the room, like in Indiana Jones. Like there's such miserable, and I love Indiana Jones, don't get me, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, I love it. But conservatives like blend reality and fantasy, and they think they would have opposed it. Why? Because they can project a fantasy out onto these movies and books if they read, and TV shows and documentaries, where they think, oh, I would have opposed this because it's so nasty looking and feeling. And so these morons, present day, are so duped by just seeing like, oh well, they're not like snarling monsters, they're just regular people. And the conservatives, the cynical, the sick punchline they make a dirty joke in which they act like, what that guy's saying, that they're not evil, they're regular people. No, I'm saying that's how easy it is. Just flip into hatred of the other. It's not necessarily even people who profess to have hatred. It's ambitious people, regular people, ordinary people, weak people, stupid people, smart people. They don't like to admit to the fact that it's people who look and sound just like them and who are able to separate the horrible things they're a part of from their own identity. I thought The Zone of Interest, the film from Jonathan Glazer, was good at testing an audience for that, because it was like daring you to say, can you find this family and the father in particular morally objectionable, even though we're never showing him actually doing anything to hurt someone. I mean, you can argue like he's doing the sort of negotiations at one point in the movie to get corporations on board for more of the death camp, the machinations and operations. But you're basically just seeing a domestic family story with a death camp on the other side of the wall that we never see. And it's like daring you to find something wrong, because what I realized for a lot of people, they can't figure out what's wrong with that. Like, what? He's not snarling. He's not like saying horrible things. He's not like squeezing his fist and saying like, I will destroy them or whatever. And that's what they think makes any group they oppose bad. They think, oh, they must be comically villainous. They're weak people. They're ambitious people. Look at what the psychologist who analyzed the defendants in the Nuremberg trial said. They didn't even want to release the findings of like their profiles on these people, because it would upset Americans to know that these people, the psychologists couldn't find stuff that like didn't find them to be like psychologically deviant or have some kind of, you know, strange deficiency or shortcoming. They were ordinary people. That is very unpleasant. I gotta navigate all these cars here. That is a very unpleasant reality for conservatives and liberals to face, because liberals are right there, about as bad. Yeah, almost, not quite. Yes, they do some nicer things. They do it with bad things with a smile, though. But they don't want to account for something that makes them very uncomfortable, which is, no, these were ordinary people who were willing to be part of the machinations of a horrible war machine and an extermination campaign. And also, it shows you how the huge blind spot conservatives have in particular, but again, liberals too. Again, Joe Biden, he championed this war of extermination against Palestine. His entire presidency, he's a fanatical, drooling loser, Zionist. The fact that conservatives or anyone who defends Israel's genocide in Palestine says, well, there's still Palestinians around. They could have leveled them all. They have nukes. They could have killed them all. That shows the reflexive lack of any insight and doing any work. Sorry, it's so the freaking cars. The lack of any willingness to uncover how do you go about determining what is and isn't a genocide, what constitutes it. Because you can look at the German campaign of the 40s and say, well, wait a minute, there were still plenty of Jews around. There were still Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. There were still exemptions for certain people. The regime at the time was very worried about public opinion and manipulating public opinion. And so, for instance, when a a bunch of Jewish men were sent to concentration camps, including Auschwitz. Their wives, who were considered of the race, were Aryan, protested. They wanted their husbands back, and it was like 1,800 of them or so. And Hitler and the regime were so worried about this, you know, creating disharmony and threatening to undermine popular support for them. He actually released these Jewish men back to their wives, even some out of Auschwitz. And so you moron, you gullible little lemmings who think, well, you would have killed them, you would have nuked them all, right? Because that's what I feel, because you watch a movie and they just kill everybody. You don't understand that you would be right there supporting that extermination campaign by saying, well, look, they're not trying to kill everybody. They made some exemptions. They brought some back. They brought some Jewish people back, yeah, just so they can continue this mass murder campaign and mass enslavement. So bogus. Like, they don't even ask, well, how do you know what you profess to believe, and how do you go about determining what is true, what is false, what matters to you, what isn't? That makes conservatives very angry, and I know, because I was a conservative, it made me very uncomfortable to have to start thinking about that stuff. For me, it kind of more or less began talking to people online, a lot of leftists and liberals, and also having a socialist teacher in college, the only one I had. Pretty much all the other teachers were conservative. I remember one just openly saying, like, you know, we needed to lie to get into the Iraq war because Saddam was a bad guy. So what are you going to do? This was 2005 and 2006. Jesus, so many cars around here. So the Nelk brothers are showing how utterly like the lack of self-respect they have when they aren't even willing to examine, well, why did people support the Nazis back in the 40s? Isn't that evil? You wouldn't support them now, right? It looks so much easier to say you would have opposed them because you have this sort of wall of separation where you can just look at this liberal propaganda, like liberal American propaganda, where it's like, America supports freedom. We don't. And I know how you bozos, the sick punchline to, where am I going? Jesus. Cars freaking everywhere. The cynical punchline to a sick joke that conservatives like, see, he doesn't. They just use anti-Semitism as a punchline. They don't care. The same way I did when people criticized Israel, and I was like, well, see, they hate Jews. They don't understand that they're reacting based on a conditioning which says, like, not that genocide is bad because of the morality of it, but it's only bad because it can be packaged in a slick manner, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the villains speak in strange accents and they're seething and brooding, and they're trying to kill the hero. It looks very different. I remember in 2015 or so when NBC, like the Today Show, they were so charmed, like, look at these dapper Nazis. How come they're not growing horns out of their head like we saw in movies? How come they're not just trying to kill random people? They're actually being nice and dress in suits, the dapper Nazis. That shows you how brainwashed these morons are, where they think the movies are actually presenting to them a morality. Movies have done such a disservice to us in that regard, and I love movies, and I'm not even saying I think mindless action movies, including mindless ones where the Nazis are villains, are bad. But I'm saying we're so brainwashed. For one thing, we're so separated from each other with cars everywhere. We don't see each other much. We're isolated in our own, we're siloed in our own neighborhoods, in our own suburbs, where we think because we can't get anywhere without a car, we think cars are freedom, when the reality is we've trapped ourselves with cars, unlike a lot of countries around the world where you have walkable communities, you have convenience stores, corner stores, community centers in residential neighborhoods, and you have lots of public transportation. And so people literally, there's just a generation of people, especially young men, just taking in propaganda, who are now not even saying they would oppose Nazis. They're just outright saying, yeah, they would support them, and saying horrible things that launched Trump into presidency about Jews and about Germany in World War II. I have heard those statements. I have seen them. You guys like to think, like, the guy looks Jewish. They're being more naked about it, more open, and just the Nelk brothers, to have that lack of insight, it's like so like degrading of yourself. To be like, don't you like worry? It looks like you're like regurgitating your own puke and eating it back up, and be like, that tastes good. And people are looking at you like you're a weirdo, and you're like, why are you looking at me weird? It tastes good. I don't get it. And if you think, that's really cool. I love motorcycles. And if you think, like people are looking at you weird, you're like, I'm not going to, well, you don't think like, well, wait, why are they looking at me weird? What's strange about eating my own puke and then like licking my fingers? So good. Nelk brothers, I don't know what their real names are, but the Milk Bros, yeah, no good. And then they had neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes on. So it's basically, you're not getting any insight from anything. You're just getting straight up a grift for them. They reach out with like sort of a rake, scrape in the money, and they're like, oh, they're like, people say there are consequences for this, for promoting the guy who's running a genocide. Come on, brain cell, work, get other brain cell online. So, question, how do you know what you know? Look to the source of the support for so many of these policies. You can just watch the polished statements that gleeful fascists like Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem give on TV. Or you can go straight to the comments, the ground root support for this stuff that is nasty and vile. And I've seen so much of it. I monitored so much of it, and I'm like, oh, it didn't go away. Like, I stopped because it was just sick. I don't want to see the world knowing how to transcode like everything into white supremacist alt-right American conservative. Now it's just mainstream conservatism speak. It used to have to be more hidden, like when Mike Pence said Trump was a vile racist for saying Muslims should be banned, and when JD Vance compared Trump to Hitler. Now it's just like, oh, okay, we can say this now? We're good? Cool, it's normal. Because again, people are so malleable. Once they get attenuated to something, like they're like, oh, well, it's not bad because it feels normal. It doesn't feel like you're being abnormal. Stop being abnormal. Just conditioning. If you can convince people that what was bad about the Nazi regime was just the aesthetics and the sinister music and actors like scowling, and not actually the morality and the underpinnings of their beliefs as well as their conduct, you can be just suckered into believing like, oh, they're actually nice and charming. Oh my good. Well, yeah, a lot of those weirdos were married. A lot of those losers had lives like where they were just ambitious. They wanted to rise up in corporate Germany, and that was the way to do it, was to be part of this genocide. So I wish I could speak more clearly about all that, more succinctly. I don't know how long I've been talking now. 18, 19 minutes? Okay. But anyways, think, how do you know what you know? And how do you go about determining whether something's true or not? Because if you ask those questions, it's so much more powerful than just reacting to something. Because I'm telling you, for a lot of you too, if you're like me, well, not if you're like me, you may come to a point in your life where you realize this is all this white supremacist stuff that you believe in, whether you call it identitarian or white nationalism or just nationalism or Christian nationalism or neo-confederacy or whatever bogus names you have, you're going to realize, oh, it was all bogus. It was all lies. We're not prepared for what came of this. It's regrettable, and we shouldn't have done this. People like me grow up to think like that, even though I was never that far, right? But I was like in the concentric circles, like I was somewhere in that region of like too much, first, I like was viscerally disgusted by the stuff I saw about like outright white supremacists, but I didn't realize how much I bought into white supremacist myths about America, which made me just default as a conservative and then a libertarian. And it took a while for like this evolution in me, this revolution in me, to learn about people, to listen to the experiences that I thought were what like Rush Limbaugh and others would describe as like people who believe they're sacred and special because they've suffered, because they've been persecuted. And the conservative idea of the oppression Olympics, that's only the instinctive reaction of what it feels like to see that when you think they're abnormal and when you think they're making it up, that life's not like that. Well, you look around your neighborhood, look, things are normal here. I'm in a nice suburb. I worked hard. I worked my way up the corporate ladder, blah, blah, blah. And you think, why aren't other people like that? Instead of thinking, how do I go about determining whether there's any validity to the stories of suffering you hear, the accounts of people who have been put in famine, who put under sanctions, who have been couped, who have been attacked by the United States, impoverished here, poisoned, their neighborhoods disinvested in, the police being sent out like an occupying force, especially here in LA. How do you go about determining that? Well, one way is, listen to their stories. I didn't say listen and then do the thing you do, which is automatically believe what you're saying. No, just listen and let the implications of those stories work their way through your mind. You can listen to any stories in particular you want. And I listen to so many white nationalists speak about their stories, and they can craft a narrative that is intoxicating. And then it plays out on Fox News and it's dressed up in suits and it seems it seems so like clean, so like authoritative. It seems like here we are in this nicely lit studio. We're drawing a clear line between the good guys and the bad guys. I'm telling you, I just watched a few minutes the other day. It was intoxicating for me. I could see the brainwashing happening the same way that I felt it without being cognizant of it when I was a conservative. And I watched lots of Fox News. And it took many years of deprogramming and evolving. And finally what I realized is I'll always be evolving. I'll always be learning. There's never going to be a final step to what I learn. There's always something new to discover as far as how should we create the world we want, where everyone can live with dignity, where we can live first of all, in peace, but also where we can be neighbors and not competition, where we can have abundant lives, not that Ezra Klein capitalist clown bullshit, but abundance as far as we can have lives where we can be with people we like. And I know how that translates out for conservatives. So for them, that just means, oh, you mean more white people? No, I mean, so where we can be around the people in our communities, we can be with people we care about, we can expand that circle of people we care about, celebrate our differences, and where we're not working so much, where we have time for that, where we have mobility for that, public transportation, walkable cities, bike lanes, where we're not being exploited for the rich, which includes these cars. We get free roads. Amazing how people who cry tyranny about getting government subsidies, like the people in Kern County or around there in Texas who said, I don't want Joe Biden's money because that's tyranny. I remember seeing years ago conservatives screaming at Chuck Schumer saying, we don't want socialized healthcare because the Nazis had. And I remember at the time I still had a twinge of that sort of like self-righteousness in me. And that's aside from the fact that Chuck Schumer is firmly in the pocket, or the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and insurance is firmly in the pocket of Chuck Schumer and he and theirs. He does not want socialized healthcare. He vehemently will fight it. He would prefer a fascist to a socialist. or even a progressive, or just kind of leftist person. He's a proud supporter of Israel's genocide. But I remember them screaming that at him, and I had that latent conservative programming, even though I would have by no means at that point called myself conservative. So think about how you go about determining what you know, and all of a sudden the world gets more uncomfortable because you don't have that sleekly packaged Fox News propaganda to divide the line between good guys and bad guys. All of a sudden you realize there's a lot of pain in the world, and a lot of it is due to the United States and white supremacy, and there's no excuse for it. And we could just have a good world. We could literally just have nice things. We could have a world in which we have time for each other and to make new connections in our communities, and we're not working to get a fraction of the money that we generate for some executive. That we don't have to give billions of dollars in free roads for auto executives in the insurance industry that kills 40,000 people a year in crashes. And we could actually have cities where the people are invested in, where we have public transportation, where you have cars as well, but you have cars for people who want them, and you don't make it a requirement to drive, and you get so many of the crashes and DUIs, and even people like getting older, if their cognitive abilities mean they shouldn't be driving, where you have basically freedom, the freedom to get around how you want. You can eat quality food, good nutrition. You have the time. You're free to choose what to do with your time, and not chosen for by your employer and by the bank that has your car loan and by your landlord that charges your rent. We can actually have good things, and that inherently means diversity. That it inherently means equity, inclusion, especially for people with disabilities too. Because disability rights, accommodation for disabilities makes the world better for everyone, except for greedy capitalist pigs. So that system of exploitation relies on white supremacy to make workers hate each other, to make people, white people in particular, the way we have it designed in America, to hate gay people, to hate trans people, to hate women, to hate people with disabilities, brown and black people, immigrants, because they think they're the ones ruining the country, and not the wealthy people, usually white, who are doing it. And I know the excuse, guys. I've looked it up so much. I mean, I've listened to it so much. It's all out there. Like, you can just listen to these white nationalist programs, and they just lay it all out. We have to oppose this. We have to educate ourselves. I swear, that's why they want to defund education, because education is so incredibly dangerous against fascism and bigotry and ignorance. And it's so incredibly powerful. When we're informed, all of a sudden we're less scared. All of a sudden we're more resourceful. Anyways, I'm going to get going. I'm going to eat my vegan cookie I got from the New Beverly. It was peanut butter one. And going to get some writing done. I'm doing a lot of writing, automatic writing for my screenplay. It's really exciting. I wrote a version I was really happy with, I was proud of, and then I got feedback on it, and I was mostly happy with. I was like, oh, the feedback's pretty good. And then I got one piece of feedback from someone who just didn't like the story, and I was like, I'll ignore it. I'm happy with the story. But then I started reading it back, my story. I'm like, oh, it's not working. And I just started with a page 1 rewrite. And so that's exciting, as opposed to thinking, oh, all that work's gone. No. That work was there, laying down certain foundation for this story I'm going to write, the new version of it, and also clearing the way for it, like getting out some of the stuff in my head that's in the way, like a successive pulling of the veil, removing of the veils, until I see the clear picture of what this story is and what it can be. All right, everyone, I'm going to get going. Be safe, and let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.